Without further ado, welcome to the Women in Science Empowerment Panel. My name is Layara Powell, and I am the first ever recruiter for the Doctor of Pharmacy program at Temple University School of Pharmacy. So I'm super excited, but I'm more honored than anything to facilitate this panel. I had the opportunity to meet with each panelist, and each panelist left me feeling inspired and empowered. And so here we are on the last day of Women's History Month 2021 to celebrate the contributions of the women that you see today. But in addition, this is also a space to share and reflect, and hopefully those that are participating live or will view this at a later date will feel the same way I felt, inspired and empowered as you navigate your own journey within this field of science. So without further ado, thank you and welcome to the WISE panel.
My name is Dr. Monique Johnson.
Tia Lyles-Williams, founder and CEO of LucasPye.
Dr. Anisha Grover.
Van Hellerslia.
My name is Dr. Ellen Walker.
I'm Swati Nagar.
I'm Brenna Murphy, and I'm so honored to be a part of the WISE panel.
I'm a research chemist at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and I study the interactions between nanoparticles and organisms.
I'm the first African-American queer woman to own and lead a biotech company. Thank you for allowing me to share space with you today. I'm looking forward to interacting with each and every one of you, and I hope you guys have a great time.
I'm the Director of Experiential Education at Temple University School of Pharmacy. This means that I help to oversee and coordinate all the clinical rotations that students participate in during their educational careers. I am also a clinical associate professor, so I teach in various courses, and I spend a few days each week taking care of patients in a clinic where I treat blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, and other conditions. I'm so thrilled and honored to be here with you today.
I am faculty at the School of Pharmacy, and I teach about medications in patients with neurological diseases. I'm also a clinical pharmacist at Temple University Hospital in the Department of Neurology, where I care for patients with strokes and epilepsy or multiple sclerosis. Really excited to be part of the Women in Science Empowerment panel and looking forward to meeting some of you.
I'm a professor of pharmacodynamics and the chairman of the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences here at the Temple University School of Pharmacy. For 30 years, I've done original research on how drugs affect the brain, and I've taught undergraduate, pharmacy, and graduate students the fundamentals of pharmacology. I'm honored to be part of the panel today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
I am professor in the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences at Temple University since 2005. I am also currently the Director of Graduate Studies. Thank you so much for letting me join this panel. Looking forward to having a really good discussion. Thank you.
As a geriatric clinical pharmacist and client liaison for CareKinesis, my role has two different sides to it, which I'm really excited to talk to you about.
I want to start off kind of like with an icebreaker where we're going to be able to share our thoughts on why science.
My why is really in the question why. With things like history and other subjects, there's an end, there's a definitive answer or a finite part of knowledge in any given subject. With science, it's always why. Why does this happen? Leads to another why and another why. It drives me crazy, and it also invigorates me. And I love every bit of it. I also have an absolute fascination with the human body, and I love knowing why things happen the way they do and the cause and effect. So in a nutshell, that's my why.
Thank you, Brenna. All right, so now moving on to our first question. What are some of the, I guess, misconceptions of women in science from your perspective? I know we all come from different backgrounds, from whether you attended an HBCU, whether you attended a PWI, HBCU, historically Black College University, PWI, predominantly white institution, or maybe you went to a more diverse school. But use your hand raise signal or just take yourself off mute to share during that time and during that transition of your education, what were some of the misconceptions that you saw or maybe experienced as a woman in science?
We can just talk. Oh, I'm going to raise my hand.
Yeah, no. Please just talk. Thank you. Go ahead, Tia.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions, I actually started noticing it in high school and middle school, when you start doing those experiments on the frog and the cat and things like that, we women, we didn't like to get our hands dirty. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions, to think that we just want to sit there and take notes and collect data and present the information versus actually getting dirty and doing the hands-on research ourselves.
Thank you. Dr. Walker?
Thanks, Leah. I think, just like there's not really broad, like there's broad misconceptions, but just like everything, it's a generalization. But I would say a lot of times women are not given credit for their motivation for science. Like they also have something else going on or whatever. And you also hear a misconception, or you hear women scientists described a lot as really hard workers, and you hear them described less frequently as, wow, she's really bright. I think for men scientists, you'll say, oh, he's brilliant, or they're really bright. And for women scientists, it's like, well, they work hard and they're pretty smart. And I think that's a real misconception.
Thank you so very much. Brenna, I know you have your hand raised. Was that from the previous question, or would you like to chime in?
That was from the previous question. I don't see my hand raised. Oh, I see lower hand. I'm sorry. I'm used to using Teams, not Zoom, so now I've forgotten everything. But I do have something to share. I think from my experience, there's a misconception that women in science, you're in a lab, you're doing something quiet and dainty with these little beakers, and you're doing experiments, and oh my gosh, science is just so much more than that. It does not always involve a lab or being stuck in a station all day doing one thing. It's such a broad area of knowledge and expertise, and I think the women on this panel are proof of that pudding. So I do think that's one of the common ones that I've seen.
Now, on that path of what you guys, or what you ladies, what you women in science are doing, what would, and this is for everyone, I'll just kind of call on you as I see you on the screen, but what is, or what do you feel is your most impactful contribution to the field thus far? And if you feel that you haven't made your biggest impact yet, what are you looking to do? So again, what do you feel thus far, where you're at, what is the biggest contribution to this field that you've made? And I also know that the contribution is not just professional, it's personal. It's things that you worked hard for. So use that to kind of motivate you thinking about your contribution in this field. So I'm going to go ahead and start this off with Swati. Dr. Nagar, please.
No, Swati is good. And I have to say, Monique, you have your hand up. Do you want to go before me? Because I saw your hand was up, because I can see the whole screen. So why don't I let you go first?
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mo. I'm sorry. I love you. I wasn't trying to cut you off. My apologies.
It's all right. No.
Thank you, Swati.
I was going to say, for me, the thing that makes me the most excited about what I've been able to do is that I have like about 4 students that I've mentored, and all of them are on all of my papers, or in one way or another. And I remember being at Lincoln University, where Lay and I also graduated from, that our professors were very instrumental in mentoring us and leading us through to the next direction, whether it's going to graduate school, encouraging us to apply to graduate school, which we never wanted to do. And I was able to pay forward what they've instilled in me in motivation and the hard work and like pushing my students in the laboratory, asking them questions about the process that we both are putting forward, like and working with, and them being a part of the process and bringing them along, and then being able to impact their futures by giving them an opportunity to put something on their resume that like is really like that really packs a punch in terms of like applying to grad schools and things of that nature. So I'm just really excited about that. I think that's, besides all of the accomplishments, that's what really like motivates me. If I get a text message from one of my mentees and they're just like, hey, how are you doing? You know, and we keep that relationship going. Thank you.
Okay, I shouldn't have let Monique go first because she said exactly everything that I would have said. So thank you for that. That was so cogent, so beautiful. Absolutely, right? Passing it forward, like mentoring the students. And I hope I can mentor more students, both men and women. And I have to say, you know, making the men, they're so young when they enter the lab, right? Making them feminists, because this is preaching to the choir. But how do we take our male colleagues and make feminists out of them? They may not even be aware, and they, you know, of their biases or even our biases. We are biased, and also all of us are, right, in some way or other. And I think the only thing I'll add is, in addition to mentoring, I know the question was about contributions, but I hope to do this more and more bravely as I get older, is I think like lifting each other. And it answers also that first question of a misconception, I think generally in societies, right, that women will not necessarily support each other and raise each other, but that whole idea of sisterhood, why not? I'd rather compete with a really bright woman. I just would. And so you're raising each other up constantly in every way, like having panels that are not man panels. What are they called? Manels. Just like I every time I'm on a committee, I fight for where are the women? So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Go ahead, Van.
I loved both of you, what you said, and I'm like, I'm like jumping out of my seat. I've been a clinical pharmacist for 20 years, but only been in academia for 5 years. And I feel like, you know, if I were to say, you know, there's lots of clinical things and patient care things that I've done, but nothing compares with knowing that I'm able to empower women, especially women who are from similar backgrounds as mine, who have just, you know, all their life have had to constantly work twice as hard to prove their seat in this table, and to be able to say, I see you, and I see that you may not fit in like the way that, you know, most people will tell you you have to fit in. But I see you, and I see your heart, and I see your effort, and I see your brilliance, and just to make them, you know, feel that sense of empowerment. That to me it's priceless. I know it sounds really cheesy, but that really is, and that's what keeps me here. There are many hard days here for various reasons, for the work that we do, the challenges of our patient care. But when I think about the students that I'm able to make an impact, that's what keeps me here. And that's what empowers me.
See, see you have your hand raised. You want to pop in, or you're good?
I'll pop in. I was gonna say that just to piggyback off what everyone said, I think the other thing as far as what I've contributed is being able to give my mentors, my teachers, my fellow colleagues their flowers today by actually having them hired to work with me in my company. I think that's a huge accomplishment. A lot of them have, due to differences, due to all the stuff we're talking about in Black Lives Matters, have not been able to get up further, sometimes not further than where I left them, and I've surpassed them. But being able to give them an opportunity to say, hey, I'm gonna reach down and put you up where you need to be, I think that's a real impact on our industry, especially with me being able to do that with my minority mentors and teachers and former coworkers.
Thank you. So I have, of course, okay, one, I do want to give our attendees an opportunity to type in any questions you may have. This is an opportunity to engage, to network, and I know panelists are open to having you email them. So at the end, we will ask to provide contact information, but I want to plant the seed now. This is your time to pull what you can from each panelist because they have something amazing to offer you. So if you have a question, use this time to ask, but we will provide an opportunity for follow-up as well. So if no one from the audience has a question, I'm going to move forward with our next conversation starter. So what would you tell your younger self today? So looking back, and this kind of encompasses, I know I draw from, in my brain, I was supposed to do something totally different. I wasn't supposed to be a recruiter. I was supposed to be doing science, but a physical therapist. That's what I went to school for. Didn't do it, but for some reason, I got back around to still loving science, loving higher ed, and putting it all together. So thank you, Dr. Borenstein, who's on the call today. But being able to do this, I would tell my younger self, hey, it's okay that it's not going according to the plan that you had in your brain. So with all that, for my panelists, use your, raise your hand or just pop in. What would you tell your younger self? Because I know for sure everything didn't go according to plan, and things won't go according to plan, and that's all right. But how do you tell your younger self how to get through it now once you've gotten through it? Brenna?
All right, I'm going to lower my hand before I forget to do that. Telling my younger self, this is something I've thought about a lot. I graduated from pharmacy school 4 years ago, so it's really fresh in my mind. And two things. One, most women in science, as a generalization, even though I don't like to make generalizations, let's face it, most of us are type A. We're very planning oriented. We're very organized. We like to see this path and we like to go right down, and it's okay to go with the flow. Take the twists and turns, because the twists and turns are what give you the most beautiful opportunities. I would also say take chances and ask, because if you don't, the answer is no. Take chances that scare the heck out of you. As long as you do it in a professional manner, I can promise you eventually you'll strike gold. Without going into the whole story, the career and the role that I'm in now, it started out with me being incredibly underqualified. I was not even graduated pharmacy school yet, and the company that I wanted to work for, CareKinesis, they were hiring pharmacists, but only had one job posted, and they wanted at least like 6 years, 5-6 years of experience. Their pharmacist had their board certified geriatric clinical expertise already, and I was itching so bad to work for this company. I was grossly underqualified, and I see that on their info page they have an email address. So I typed a professional email in a moment of desperation, where my come to Jesus moment of I'm graduating and I'm scared to death because I have to get a job and I don't have one popped up. And I just said, I am so passionate about your company for X, Y, and Z reasons. I understand that I am grossly underqualified for everything that you are looking for in a pharmacist, but I would love to volunteer if I can. If you're accepting volunteers or part-time, I just want to learn about what you do. What I did not expect back was that the CEO of the company and the founder saw that email, and I got a call from HR for an interview. So that was really, it was a lesson to me to follow my own advice and take chances that scare the heck out of you. My fingers were shaking as I was typing that email. They're going to think I'm a fool. And guess what? It is the best thing I've ever done. So that is my gold nugget of advice. Given enough of my 2 cents, I'd love to share the floor.
Anisha, go ahead. Thank you.
I'm going to put my hand down too before I forget. But I think just finding joy in the journey, it's something that I say to students a lot. And people have told me many times that I smile too much, overly optimistic. But to me,
being joyful or finding joy doesn't mean you're kind of naive to all the bad things in the world. And we see a lot of those in science, and we run up against a lot of barriers, and we see patients that we, can only do so much for. But I think finding that joy is actually, choosing to find it despite all those bad things. And don't underestimate how contagious that can be. And I think, just learning to not, I think sometimes in science, we're always chasing a destination. And I tell our students, don't wait till graduation to find that joy. Don't wait until you're done residency. Don't wait until you're done that research project. Find that joy daily and prioritize it. Prioritize self-care along with being ambitious. I think those things are all super important as you go and not just one day. So I think that that's something that I would remind my younger self to do along the way, kind of as an intentional daily task.
Thank you. Monique?
So I finally figured out the raise hand function. I wrote a little bit of a note because my memory is really bad, and I would have forgotten what I was going to say. But I would have told my younger self, you're afraid of failure. Like, you're really afraid of failure. And it's like a crippling fear. Be prepared to fail a lot. Like, at a certain point, that's all you're going to do is fail. All of your experiments are going to be garbage until it's that one good time that you really execute. But all of the failures build up to a plan that will get you to that point of execution where it's the thing that gets published. And it's okay to fail, you'll get there. And even if you get, let's say, like a rejection letter or a major revision, that's an opportunity. You can still revise. You know how to put something together to justify your work. So be prepared to do that as well. That's what I would say. But also read your textbooks because you didn't do that.
And go to class.
Look, I went to class, but it's the reading of the textbooks that I was like, man, if I would have read the organic chemistry textbooks, maybe in pharmacology, like the panelists, but also, I mean, I really loved instruments and instrumentation. So then I became an analytical chemist, so it made sense.
Thanks, Mo. Tia?
Yeah, that was hilarious. That was right on time. So in addition to reading your textbook and taking that risk, I would like to say, I think that's one of the things that I would tell myself is don't be afraid to take risks and don't ask for permission to lead. You do not need permission. No one is going to give you permission. They will stare at you and blue in your face. Like, if you ain't moving, I ain't moving. If you ain't asking, I ain't telling. That's why I put that in the box. Ask your questions. You have to be prepared to take risks because science is all about risk. Look at COVID-19. It's still a risk. The vaccine, I hate saying it, but it's still a risk, right? It's a calculated risk. So don't be afraid to take risks and don't wait for permission to leave.
Dr. Walker?
I totally agree, Tia. You have to kind of, unless you step up, you're often not invited. So sometimes you seem like, oh, you're pushy, or a lot of times nobody's asking your opinion. Like you're not really invited to give your opinion. And so if you don't provide it anyways, then no one's going to hear it. What I would tell my younger self, and I think my younger self is probably more years away than most of you on the panel. But one thing I think it's hard for women to do is say no. So especially young faculty or young people in a company, like you're trying to make your way, and people are going to throw at you a lot of busy work. You notice that mostly women are on a lot of service committees and things like that because we don't know how to prioritize our science or our goals over oh, can you help out with this thing? And I don't want to sound like you shouldn't help out, but you will notice that maybe you're helping out a lot more than your male colleagues, or you're, kind of they're spending their time getting their papers written and you're not. So that's something I would tell my younger self. Don't be afraid to say no. You don't want to, if you say no all the time, then people stop asking you. So it's a tough balance, but you also have to learn to say no and think about your trajectory.
Thank you. So I have kind of like, well, I'll keep it one part. How has your foundation, where you came from, your family background influenced your career goals? And I'm going to start with Van.
Well, thank you. I grew up about 2 miles from Temple, and I remember, so we live in North Philly, and we would go to Chinatown, which is Center City, like in the weekends, and sometimes during the week. And I remember my dad, just kind of pointing out as we drive through Temple, wow, look at those doctors with their lab coats. And it was just kind of like he had such admiration for these, these people who are educated and they're highly esteemed. And I knew that I had to be successful in such a way because it was necessary to raise the socioeconomic status of our family. We were refugees, and this is, where the coordinates of our life landed us, in North Philadelphia. And so I went to Girls High, and I was able to get into a pharmacy program. And I think, for most of my career, it was all about just achieving and just to be able to have a job and do well and just make an impact. But I really feel so strongly that it's about creating opportunities for the next generation, and it's about empowering the next generation. And what could be more meaningful than being able to plant seeds and to have these great big red trees, these redwood trees that are just going to become huge. And so I'm planting into the next generation. And what really actually is also really exciting is that I get to also make an impact in the School of Medicine, because I'm faculty member there, and I have neurologists who are female and who are of minority, minority backgrounds. And I see so much of the same things in my pharmacy students, that same level of insecurities or imposter syndromes or whatever. And so just being able to make an impact, not just in pharmacy school, but also among future physicians, especially women and women of color.
Thank you, Van. I had to pick on you a little bit. Anisha, can I hear from you, please?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in suburbia, actually suburb of Pennsylvania, of Philly. So I've been an Eagles fan since birth. Swati, I know you are too. So I just had to throw that in there. But I come from a family where both my parents are PhDs, and that is the expectation that doctorate degrees will be pursued. So I had role models that enforced that in me. I had grandparents who were educators and in the pharmaceutical field. So I had some of that by birth. So when I started college, I was like, I'm not doing any of that. I'm going to go to a school for architecture. I'm going to go to art school was my original ambition, and everyone supported it. So I was very lucky, but I ended up making my way back to pharmacy. I think my dad fell off his chair because he was like, I thought we weren't cool, but now look what you're doing. So I merged my mom and dad, and I became a pharmacy educator. So a little piece of each of them. So that is my background. That's how it landed me here, despite my best efforts to be a rebel.
Thanks, Anisha. Tia.
Sorry, I was listening too hard. I couldn't find my mouse. Something that shaped my background, probably it's two things. I was homeschooled before there was a homeschool. So My mom taught me all the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and all the basics before I even got into school. And was just very resourceful and making sure that we had a good foundation before we was of age to go to elementary school. And then the other one is not listening to the word no. So anytime somebody told me, no, I can do something, or you can't do that, or whatever, I always work my way around it. Again, not asking for permission to leave.
We have a question from the audience, but before I take that one, anyone else want to pop in and share? All right, so this amazing question, how do I deal with being an accomplished woman in science, but being confident enough to not come across as if I'm bragging or boastful? I have accomplished a lot as a student and I want to do more, but sometimes I feel as if I can't say what I've done without feeling bad about it. So to my accomplished women, how would you guide this young, successful woman in science? Go ahead, Tia.
All right, so one.
Dr. Walker, you're up next. I love it. I can see everyone doing this. So
I'm
good.
already excited to hear this answer.
Yeah, so for what, when it comes to promoting yourself, when you're trying to get the job or you're trying to get a position or an opportunity, there's nothing wrong with talking about yourself. Nobody's going to talk about yourself or highlight the things that you do best outside of you. So please remember that. The only time somebody thinks that you're bragging, and that may be legitimately, is when you're bragging to your family, like I did this and this and this and that and the third. But when you're in a professional setting and you're trying to give them, I don't want to say illusion, but get them to understand that you are a systematic expert in your field, you have to talk. You have to tell them what you know. You have to tell them what you've done. So to give me an example of that, I'm building a facility in Philadelphia, actually in the Southwest. I'm speaking to this commercial real estate investor. He's asking me questions, and I'm science like you guys. So everything I've learned from permitting and construction, I probably learned within the past literally 2 to 3 weeks. But he's asking me questions and I'm knocking him down. So when he gets to the science part, he makes a mistake. I correct him. I did not feel bad about it. His reaction was, oh, you know your stuff. Yes, thank you. And don't forget to do X, Y, Z, and I need this and that and the third. If you don't do these things, people assume that you don't have the credibility that you say that you have on paper. So the whole confidence thing needs to be there. Imposter syndrome, I still get that too sometimes, but you got to learn how to have a short conversation with yourself to pick yourself up and keep going. And 9 times out of 10, you guys, when you're talking in a professional setting and somebody's asking you about your professional history, as soon as they ask you something, you guys automatically going to answer. You're going to get that spark and you're going to continue to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. So the best thing is to talk about yourself. Don't sell yourself short. Don't worry about how the audience is feeling in that time, because at that time, they're trying to ascertain who you are and if you have the credibility for the role or the opportunity.
Thank you. Ellen, go ahead.
I just want to say ditto to Tia. That was exactly the case. Everybody has to sell themselves. But I think what you're kind of expressing is, as women, you're supposed to not be, so somehow you're not supposed to brag about these amazing accomplishments. They're even more amazing because you accomplished them. That's what's awesome about it. So, definitely, don't sell yourself short in any situation, and make sure people know what you've done, so that you get the credit that you're due, for sure.
All right, next question, and this one is going to lead off with Swati. What is something that your career has helped you to learn personally about yourself? So again, what has your career, your professional career, helped you to learn personally about yourself? After Swati, I'm going to have Brenna pop in, and then I'm going to have Van pop in.
Oh, that's a question that I wish I had more time to think about. But I I think what my career has, so there are a lot of skills that I have in my career that I'm very proud of. Most of them, not all, translate very well into personal growth as well. So being organized. But I think it's like a back and forth thing. You learn from, your life is just a seamless kind of back and forth, right? So I think, I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. There are so many thoughts coming into my head. There's not one that I can think of. I think one thing I will say, and I don't know how this will sound, but I think being selfishness is not necessarily a negative quality. To me, that's something that I think women are not always good at thinking about. I think all of us, we are wired to be nurturers. And I'm sorry, sometimes it's not your job to nurture X or Y or Z. And, it's okay to be selfish. And in fact, I will go further and say, it's a good thing. To be selfish can be a good thing. As long as you're not obviously being, and pardon my French, as long as you're not being an asshole and, climbing on top of other people and putting someone else down to raise yourself up, as long as you're not doing that, it's okay to be selfish. And I think it gets back to what Ellen was saying about learning to say no, or even just, and that's one thing I've learned, I think, from my work, which I have been able to, which has helped me in my personal growth also, is to always have a little, what's it called, like to be able to buy time if you don't know, if someone's pressuring you. Because at work, I'm very good at, if someone pressures me for an answer, I'll say, I'll get back to you, or when do you need this answer by? But in your personal life, it's so much harder to do that, even with your loved ones, your closest family, your closest girlfriend. And that's a good one that I can share, definitely. When do you need this answer by, or can I get back to you? Or telling myself, oh my God, she just texted me. I don't need to text her back immediately. I can sleep on it, right? Because at work, I'm so good at that. I always have like my first draft of an email that's just angry. And then the email I send out the next morning is super professional. But why can't I do that in my personal life? Oh my God, I can. I'm the same person.
That was great. You didn't need to have time. That was perfect. Thank you. Brenna, I think I called on you next, and then Van. Is that the right order? Okay, good. I remember that.
Thanks, Lay. Something that I learned about myself, and keeping in mind that this is, I know we do have men on the line as well, but it is a women's panel for empowerment. And I have to give credit to my husband for helping fertilize these skills. I have a tendency, many of you have mentioned this, to say yes too much, to be apologetic too much, to sympathize just too much with things. And in a professional setting, sometimes that shows weakness or a lack of confidence. And I've learned to be more confident in myself and keep my eye on that goal, listen to my inner strength, and stay steadfast, because, in a man's world, they go in and they go for it. I want that raise. I want this. I want that. And they don't blink. They don't fret. They don't shake. And that's why we see men getting it. They get the higher base salaries. They get, a lot of times, it could be bias, but it could be just that they're asking for it and we're not. And my husband said to me, Bren, you gotta just don't blink. Go for what you want. Ask for it and say it with confidence and conviction. Like, you already know the answer and you already know what you're gonna get. Don't say, I'm sorry, or if that's okay with you, too much, because then you're betting against yourself. Go knuckle to knuckle with these dudes. You're their equal. And that was already in me, but I didn't let it out. And thanks to him, he really, empowered me to do that. And I've put that to the test in the professional setting. People who did intimidate me, men or women, I'd stick to my guns. I'd think about it and say, you know what, my moral compass is straight. I'm making this decision, and here I am. Let's have a talk about it. And it's helped me a lot, and I've learned that I'm stronger than I think. So that's what my career has taught me, to empower myself and give myself a little more credit. And I know that everyone on this Zoom meeting has that too.
And then Mo, and then also to our student, if I pronounce your name incorrectly, please forgive me, Armane, maybe, not sure, but she did want to say thank you so much again. Please feel free to email me. I'll drop that out, email you to, well, the panelists, so you guys can have her contact. She has lab and an exam, so she has to get back to studying, and this was a great break for her and knocking down barriers. So you panelists are the bomb. Thank you.
I guess for me, how my work has maybe helped inform my personal life. I think because my work, I've been able to learn how to really create a space for myself, especially during a time, like I said, I was a clinical pharmacist like 20 years ago in this area, which there wasn't a lot of space for a clinical pharmacist because you were competing with the physician, who was often a white male, much older. And for me to make my space and to make my recommendations, I really learned that I had to be able to be very data driven. And that has also transferred now into my personal life, is that when I see something wrong, either in my community, in my school district, that I don't agree with, I have learned now how to argue my points in a data-driven manner and in such a way that helps us to see, the bigger picture and what is it that we collectively value, and what is it you're doing is not moving in the direction that we need. So just learning those skills of how to deal with my personal life and so forth. I think those skills gained from my professional life.
Thanks, Van. Go ahead, Mo.
It was interesting. I just wanted to build on a point that Brenna was talking about. I have never seen my male counterparts or my male colleagues nervous about like anything. I've never really seen them admit to a weakness, except for my Black male colleague, but he's like one of my best friends, right? So he's talked about his imposter syndrome and the things that we all share, right? But to me, I've never seen any of the men that I work with like stressed out or frustrated or hampered by a question that someone is asking. It's us that we feel guilty or less than, or like, man, I didn't answer that question correctly, and it'll haunt you, it'll eat at you. So I think we just need to sort of adapt that. Figure out how to BS the same way that these guys BS, and then they still get like the promotion, and you're like, how did we start at the same time, but you're making $5,000 more than me? So I think we need to start tapping into some of those, learn the tricks of the trade that they're showing and do it.
I like that, Mo. Go ahead, Tia.
I was gonna say the same thing Monique just said, right? Before, up until a couple of weeks ago, I never seen a man get nervous about anything. But I will say probably the latter part of my career, more importantly, a couple of weeks ago, when I start owning it, right? And you're talking about science and they talking about real estate as I'm doing this interaction, you will see them buckle. These are white men buckling as soon as I open my mouth and ask them a question that makes them think and tick. And they get so nervous that they implement the practices. I think what Swati just said, let me sleep on it. Let me get back to you, right? And this is stuff in their wheelhouse. These are real estate construction guys. And I ask something in a way that's like, oh shit. And so then the response I get, well, Tia, you're really smart. We don't want to sound dumb. You're not gonna sound dumb, just answer the question. So I'm using that to say, own it. I promise you, when you guys own it and don't buckle at all, you're going to start to see them buckle in front of you.
Thank you, Tia. Go ahead, Dr. Walker.
Yeah, I totally agree with what people are saying. One thing I I learned when I got a grant review back and somebody had said, oh, this isn't going to work. You know, nobody's done this before. You know, the PI doesn't know what she's talking about. I thought, oh, wow, I don't know what I'm talking about. Let me go email and call some of my colleagues that are in this, have also done somewhat similar things. So I called up a friend of mine who worked at the NIH, and I said, yeah, they said nobody's ever done this. And, you know, my idea is crazy. And so, you know, I was just wondering, you know, what you thought about it. And I'm kind of asking around to all my colleagues to see if anybody's done this. And he started laughing and he said, that's, you know, you're acting, you know, you're a woman, so you automatically feel, you take what they're saying and you're like incorporating it. You don't know that. He said, if I, you know, he goes, if I got that review, I'd be like, they're wrong. This idea would work. He said, you know, you're trying to gather information, go around, try to, you know, gather fellow people with you on this. He says, it's your idea. You're right. You know, fight back on that grant review. And I realize I mean, I am an information gatherer. That's what scientists do. But I also realize he's right. Like, my idea is good. And I did eventually get the grant. So, but it was fighting back. It was really, and it took a man to tell me, you're being like a woman. Like, I would never say that. I would fight back. And I was like, John, you're right. You know, so I thank him.
That's perfect. All right. So I know we are at 7:07, but this is being recorded and the gems that you folks are dropping are amazing. So this is going to be my last question and then we will conclude. And is that okay with everyone? Okay. We're still in quarantine. What have you learned about yourself during this time? And this is for everyone. If you feel more comfortable to type it in the chat, you can, but I want to hear, and you can volunteer to share, what have you learned about yourself during quarantine? And whoever wants to go first, please feel free to do so.
Fighting my fears and going first.
That's what I'm talking about. Go ahead.
So I am an introvert at heart. I already knew this. Most people don't understand, I think, what introversion means, but I have really truly embraced the fact that I am a homebody and I do love being home. But I guess, like, to speak to some of the things that I heard earlier about kind of fighting your fears and speaking up, I also like to tell my students that it's okay to be you. So if you aren't the loudest voice in the room, you don't have to be. There are other ways to exert your leadership and be a quiet leader or demonstrate through action without having to have the perfect speech lined up. And I think sometimes in American society, we really celebrate public speaking and selling yourself and all those things. But if that doesn't feel authentic or genuine to you, you don't have to exert your presence in that way. And so I think I've gotten even more comfortable in my own skin through the quarantine, and kind of knowing that you can be authentic to yourself and do what feels right without having to fit a mold of what everyone kind of expects you to be.
Thank you for conquering your fears. And then also, like, you and I have like opposite personalities, but we mesh so well. And I appreciate that. And I try to take from other folks that are more quiet than I am, because that is a skill set that I'm working on. But I do appreciate being able to see it from a perspective other than my own. And then I know a lot of students feel like, I have to be this, I have to be that. But if that's not who you are and that's not speaking to your core, that's not who you have to be. You have to be you. So thank you so much for honing in on it. Monique, go ahead.
Yay. So I was gonna say, so Lay knows me very well. I don't like to do anything I don't want to do. Like, I have adapted in like the past, I would say, couple of months. I just don't like feeling bad. And I just don't like feeling bad. That's just not the way I'm gonna live my life. I do things that I want to do. And I've been able to, during this time, fall in love with life again. It's been tough sometimes, some days, but I'm cooking more. I'm understanding things that go well with my mental health. If you would have told me in the beginning of this that we would have all of this time, I would have been like, oh man, I'm going to watch all the shows that I said I wasn't going to watch. I'm going to read all the books. I haven't read a single book fully. My DVR keeps deleting shows because it's so full. But I'm still I'm overjoyed and I'm happy. I have my cats. They're always in here with me. I'm not a cat lady. I just have cats that I love and they talk to me. But anyway, just been falling in love with life, falling in love with cooking. And I also noticed that I now have a built-in schedule, and anything that throws me off the schedule, it just doesn't work. And I'm like, oh no, you want to meet on Friday night? That's not in the schedule. But and I hope that during this time everyone is able to I've also been able to check in on people, a lot more people that I normally just wouldn't and wouldn't have the time to. I've been building different relationships, and also I've been able to do outreach. The outreach that I would have never had the time to do, that I kind of would be maybe jealous of people that are able to do chemistry outreach and not knowing how to get into that angle. But luckily I was tapped by some friends, and it's myself and 6 other chemists, Black female chemists, that we run an organization that allows us to bring science to K-5 kids. And we do a virtual program every Saturday. I'm putting together videos and making fun of myself, and I'm having the time of my life. So even in spite of all of this, it's you can find the happiness in it. So thank you for allowing me to share.
We do have folks that put in the chat. So mental health is a priority, definitely. I know that has been something that all of us are tapping into some way, somehow, or we've been forced to tap into some way, somehow, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I also have, let me see here, I want to sift through the chat. Jill, I believe, is also an extrovert. Sorry, the chat is blowing up, which is a good thing because I was trying to read everyone's responses. I know, Dr. Walker, you put something in here, and I learned that I own too many clothes. Thank you, Swati. I think we've also learned that as well. We also have from Van, I learned what it means to flourish. Would you like to elaborate on that, Van?
I think too often we think that the goal of life is to be happy and that everything we do is about feeling good. But to truly flourish, the science have taught us that it's about leading a meaningful life. So that leading a meaningful life, so that sometimes you've got positive days and sometimes they're not so positive, but to really be able to meditate what it means to lead a meaningful life can actually enable us to really flourish.
Thank you. And I know Dr. Walker, sorry, I keep saying Dr. Walker, Ellen, she also put that I learned during quarantine that I am too easily distracted. And I think that's something that we are all working on some way, somehow, especially in new workspaces. Anyone else would like to chime in? Jill, as an extrovert, I learned that it's not too terrible to be deprived of social interactions for a little while. Oh my goodness, you must be my spirit animal, because I used to I'm coming from undergraduate admissions, going to this high school, going to that fair, going to this, going to that. And I felt like, oh, I need that to keep going. I've learned that I don't need that to keep going. It was a part of what I was doing then. It may not be a part of what I'm doing now. And there's other ways that I am still fulfilled in my position without spinning on my forehead at a college fair, in a classroom, talking to high school students. So on the flip side of, just needing to be out there, I know for me, I've learned that being at the dining room table in my home office, I can still flourish and I can still find ways to be effective and make a difference. So it is 7:16. This panel has been amazing. And I want to really just thank you all individually. I spent time with you individually, but to see it come together and to just see this flourish on the last day of Women's History Month 2021. Thank you so much to my panelists. You ladies are amazing. Thank you so much for inspiring me and empowering me. And I hope everyone that attended felt and feels inspired and empowered after this evening. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Be grateful because you are great.
Thank you
Thanks,
for
Lara.